Picture a man standing in the dusty glow of late afternoon. He's half bent at the waist, buckling a toddler into a car seat that's too small for his growing child and too big for his shrinking freedom. His shirt is wrinkled. His phone buzzes in his pocket with work emails he doesn't have the energy to answer. His neighbors glance over with approval. That's a devoted father. That's a real man. That's what life is all about. Arthur Schopenhauer would look at this scene with the cold clarity of someone who saw human life, without the filters of romance, culture, or instinct. And he would say one simple thing: this man is not fulfilled. This man is not wise. This man has simply lost the ability to choose. It's not that he's evil. It's not that his children don't deserve care. It's that he stepped into a role he never philosophically examined, a role crafted not by his reason, but by ancient biological impulses masquerading as destiny. Schopenhauer believed something brutally straightforward. If human reproduction required rational thought instead of instinctual desire, the human race would end by tomorrow morning. Why? Because any man who actually stops long enough to examine the consequences of creating new life would hesitate. Any man who considers the weight of existence, the suffering baked into consciousness, would think twice. Any man who looks honestly at his own life and counts the hours spent anxious, burdened, frustrated, exhausted, uncertain, lonely, or afraid would realize that parenthood magnifies every one of those pains. It doesn't reduce them. And yet, this suburban father believes he's chosen the right path because society praises him for carrying a weight that is slowly killing his freedom. Schopenhauer would say he hasn't gained a purpose. He has simply become useful. And usefulness is not wisdom. Usefulness is not fulfillment. Usefulness is the first chain disguised as virtue. Follow that same father into his living room. He collapses onto the couch for 2 minutes of silence before someone calls his name. His life looks intentional. A home, a family, a routine. But Schopenhauer would describe it as something far more tragic. A life constructed by instincts he mistook for decisions. He believed the greatest trick ever played on humanity is the illusion of free choice in matters of love, marriage, and reproduction. According to him, the individual doesn't choose to have children. The species chooses through him. Look closely at any man who becomes a father. He thinks he followed his heart, acted out of love, made a thoughtful adult decision. Schopenhauer exposes the real mechanism. Love is nature's anesthesia. Romance is nature's propaganda. Desire is nature's manipulation. The species wants to continue, so it hijacks the brain with chemicals that feel like destiny. Dopamine, oxytocin, attraction, infatuation. All of it designed to keep him blind long enough to create another consciousness. When he first fell in love, he wasn't thinking about diapers, or school fees, or the erosion of his own ambitions. He wasn't imagining the years of emotional and financial obligation. He wasn't calculating the opportunity cost of parenthood. He was intoxicated. Schopenhauer called this the species trick, a biological sleight of hand that disguises obligation as passion. And here is the part most men never grasp. Nature does not care if you end up happy. It only cares that you reproduce. Once the biological mission is complete, the chemicals fade, the romance cools, the clarity returns. Suddenly, the man realizes he isn't living his dream. He's living out the consequences of urges he never chose. He hasn't gained a life. He has inherited a sentence. Now picture him again, not in the driveway, not in the living room, but in the hallway at 11 p.m. He is standing in the dark, rocking a crying baby in his arms, whispering, it's okay, even though nothing about his life feels okay anymore. This is where Schopenhauer's hammer falls hardest. The father believes he chose responsibility. Philosophy says he surrendered freedom. Schopenhauer argued that the will, that blind, irrational life force driving all humans, tricks men into sacrificing their own existence for the next generation. Not out of love, not out of meaning, but out of compulsion. Watch any father long enough, and you'll see the same tragic transformation. The ambitious man becomes the overnight caretaker. The dreamer becomes the alarm clock for school runs. The individual becomes the infrastructure for others' survival. And yet, he proudly calls this purpose. Schopenhauer would call it mislabeling the cage as destiny. The tragedy goes deeper, because the father doesn't just sacrifice time, he sacrifices selfhood. He becomes a provider, a problem solver, a protector, a perpetual source of emotional labor. And in exchange, he gets what exactly? Approval, a pat on the back, a yearly Father's Day card. Schopenhauer believed that the more responsibilities you attach to yourself, the more you dissolve the only thing that truly belongs to you, your individuality. Look at the father carefully, and you'll see the signs. He sighs more than he speaks. He plans more for others than for himself. He apologizes for needing rest. He measures his worth through what he can offer, not who he actually is. This is the silent tragedy. A man can lose everything while believing he's doing the right thing, because duty feels noble even when it's destroying him. The moment a man becomes responsible, the world starts draining him. As soon as he is indispensable, society, family, and work begin to treat him as a resource rather than a human. At first, everyone praises him. You're such a good dad. You're so reliable. You're doing the right thing. Slowly, those compliments harden into expectations. His children expect him to pay. His partner expects him to provide. His job expects him to endure stress without complaint. Society expects him to carry the invisible weight of stability. And the more he gives, the more he is expected to give. What looks like respect is actually extraction. Once everyone relies on him, his time stops belonging to him. His money stops being his. His dreams become background noise. His desires become irrelevant. He becomes the default answer to every problem. Dad will fix it. Dad will pay. Dad will handle it. Dad will figure it out. The world doesn't care how tired he is. It only cares that he doesn't stop. Sacrifice has no finish line. And here's the sinister twist. The more responsible a man becomes, the less freedom he is allowed. He can't quit the job he hates. He can't move cities. He can't take real risks. Responsibility becomes a leash. Sacrifice becomes identity. Freedom becomes a forgotten luxury. Schopenhauer warned, the moment you make yourself essential, you stop being free. His most brutal idea, though, isn't about fathers. It is about existence itself. He believed consciousness is not a gift. It is a sentence to worry, to fear, to desire, to be disappointed, to age, to decline, to die. So when a man has children, he isn't giving life, he is giving the burden of existence, a burden he didn't even ask for himself. You create a being who will feel heartbreak, failure, jealousy, sickness, insecurity, aging, and the awareness of death, all because you wanted a family. Schopenhauer summarized it with one devastating line. To create life is to create suffering. Not occasional suffering, every single pain that being will ever endure. The father proudly films his child's first steps, unaware of the future panic attacks, betrayals, humiliations, loneliness, illnesses, the existential dread, and the final breath he has made inevitable. Parents say, "We just want our children to be happy." Schopenhauer knew better. Happiness is not the baseline of life. Pain is. Happiness is only a brief pause between waves of suffering. Creating a child is creating a new center of suffering, a new consciousness forced to battle the same chaos you barely survived. Is it compassionate to bring someone into a world they cannot escape just because you wanted meaning? Most men never dare answer that honestly. Look at how most stories of unplanned fatherhood begin, not with reason, but with romantic intoxication. Schopenhauer called romantic love the great illusion of nature, a biological drug that blinds the mind and convinces men that a temporary feeling is eternal destiny. Attraction fires, hormones surge, the brain enters fantasy, a relationship forms, the future is imagined, not analyzed, and reproduction becomes almost inevitable. Every step feels like choice, but none of it actually is. Almost no one asks, "Do I really want this? Is this reason or hormones? What will this cost me in 20 years? Is this my will or the species acting through me?" By the time clarity returns, the trap has snapped shut. The man isn't choosing anymore. He's reacting, working, providing, sacrificing. Biology has finished its work. Schopenhauer saw love not as something pure, but as biology manipulating the individual for the survival of the species. Love, he wrote, is a deception for the continuation of the species. Nature doesn't care about your dreams. It only cares that your genes go on. Romance is the bait. Responsibility is the hook. Parenthood is the capture. The feeling is temporary. The consequence is permanent. Schopenhauer was blunt. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. He didn't mean loneliness. He meant autonomy, the ability to control one's time, direction, and consciousness. Fatherhood wipes that out. The moment a child is born, the father's life is no longer his own. Every decision must be family safe. Every risk must be dialed down. Every dream reshaped around dependence. Every hour accounted for. Freedom doesn't explode in some dramatic moment. It slowly evaporates into routines, obligations, and responsibilities he never truly chose. Meanwhile, the man who remains childless still has what Schopenhauer valued most: optionality. He can reinvent himself, move, take risks, pivot when life offers new information. Not because he is selfish, but because he is unbound. For Schopenhauer, freedom is the highest spiritual condition a human can reach, and having children is the fastest way to lose it. Parents love to claim, children are an investment. In Schopenhauer's eyes, they are a guaranteed liability. Over 18 years, a child absorbs your income, your time, your energy, your mental space, your flexibility, your ability to take risks. Children create path dependency. Once they exist, your life becomes a corridor of safe decisions. You can't just start over. You can't just gamble on yourself. Your life becomes a spreadsheet of fixed costs and fixed obligations. The childless man's life can compound. He invests in himself, his skills, his assets, his experiences. The father's life, if he's not brutally conscious, slowly depreciates under the weight of demands. The more dependence a man has, the more the world takes from him, and the less he gets back. Then comes the cruelest illusion of all. Children give your life meaning. Schopenhauer rejected that. Meaning doesn't come from duplication. It comes from depth, from thinking, creating, understanding, building something that exists beyond blood. Watch what happens when a man builds his identity around his children. He stops being himself and becomes a role. Someone's dad, someone who doesn't have time anymore, someone who used to be talented. His inner life shrinks to fit around everyone else's needs. That isn't meaning. That's disappearance. Real legacy, Schopenhauer thought, lives in ideas, in works, in wisdom, not in DNA. Children will pursue their own lives, their own dreams, their own values. They will not exist to carry your meaning. Children aren't monuments. They're independent beings who walk away. If the only way you can feel meaningful is through them, you never had meaning to begin with. Most of this, Schopenhauer argued, is not the result of deep thought, but of programming. From childhood, men are conditioned. Be a provider, start a family, carry the name. One day, you'll regret not having kids. Movies, religion, culture, all repeat one message. To be a man, you must reproduce. But who actually benefits from that belief? Not the individual. Society. Society needs more workers, taxpayers, consumers, soldiers, stable households. It needs people who will sacrifice individuality for continuity. Men who obey that script become replaceable and predictable. Men who refuse it become something else entirely. Individuals. Most people don't want you free. They want you useful. And nothing makes you more useful to the machine than dependents who keep you tied to it. So when people hear Schopenhauer and say, he just hates kids, they miss the point. This isn't about hating children. It's about recognizing what existence really is. Every life contains pain, loss, illness, fear, disappointment, aging, and death. Even joy, he thought, is only temporary relief between waves of dissatisfaction. The non-existents suffer no pain, he wrote. You can only suffer if you exist. Not bringing someone into existence, then, is not cruelty in his eyes. It can be the highest form of mercy. The question he leaves you with is simple and devastating. Would a man not spare the next generation the burden of existence if he truly understood what existence is? Most men never ask it. The ones who do change everything. A conscious man doesn't need children to feel whole. He doesn't need lineage to feel meaningful. He doesn't need to reproduce to live fully. He needs only one thing: the courage to choose his own life, instead of the life biology and society silently chose for him. And that, Schopenhauer would say, is the beginning of real wisdom.